Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot using FantasyPro's Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock draft are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, a kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. We're going to be drafting up against the expert consensus rankings on FantasyPros, as well as the composite ADP from ESPN, NFL Sleeper, and RT Sports. I did adjust the position values of wide receivers too high because I feel like this year, unlike in prior seasons, wide receivers go a lot earlier on and at a much higher rate early on in fantasy drafts. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot. Just an important note, next Sunday, the 20th, I will be doing a 10 to 12 hour live stream doing drafts, so make sure that you guys tune in. It's going to start at around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me know down below in the comments section some guests that you might want to see on that draft stream. I already have some guests lined up, but let me know some other names if there's some certain people that you want to see on there. So Justin Jefferson is the 101, followed by Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler, Travis Kelce, Cooper Kupp, Bijan Robinson, as well as CD Lamb. Again, my strategy in 10-team leagues is I am much more likely to reach on a tight end in the first round a lot earlier. I talk about this in the first round draft strategy video that I posted earlier today. In a 12-team league, I don't necessarily want to pay the 105 or the 106 to get Travis Kelce, but I'm a lot more likely to do it in a 10-team league because a majority of the teams, and unless someone in your league is a complete and utter idiot, basically every single team is going to be stacked to the gills. They're going to have these great running backs, great wide receivers, but how you overtake that is by having an elite tight end, having an elite quarterback. So at the 106, I'm definitely fine selecting Travis Kelce in a 10-team league, whereas in a 12-team league where not every team is stacked, I don't think it's as important to reach for Kelce at this spot. So we are at the 1.10. Obviously, Kelce is off the board, and we're not going to reach for Mark Andrews in the first or the second round. If he magically comes back to us in the third round, I'd be very happy about that, but I honestly don't think that he will. We could technically go with a quarterback in the second round because I do think having that elite quarterback also helps you because there's only so many elite quarterbacks in fantasy football, but the end of the first, the early second for a quarterback to me is a little too expensive, if I'm being honest with you, even in a 10-team league where I feel a lot more confident in drafting a quarterback a little bit earlier. So best available players right now: Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Adams. Best running back: Saquon, Tony Pollard, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, and Derrick Henry. So we're going to go with my best available wide receiver first and my best overall player available, and that is going to be Stefan Diggs. Stefan Diggs last year did at points not necessarily struggle, but that Bills offense definitely did not look the same when Josh Allen was banged up, and towards the end of the season after that injury, Josh Allen just didn't look the same. Now, he wasn't some complete and utter scrub out there, blind like fucking Stevie Wonder trying to throw the pigskin around, but it wasn't the same Josh Allen that we are used to. I think given Josh Allen should be 100% healthy to start the season, that will help out Stefan Diggs. This guy's an incredibly safe pick inside of the first round. We know what Stefan Diggs is going to do. He's going to put up some of the highest receiving yards, some of the highest targets, highest receptions, and potentially the highest amount of receiving touchdowns in the National Football League. They brought in Dalton Kincaid as another option in the offense, but they didn't really add in too many other weapons. So I think Stefan Diggs is still very clearly the wide receiver one on an offense with a great quarterback in Josh Allen. Incredibly safe pick in the first round with the upside of being the wide receiver one. Now, normally, I would probably just double tap Stefan Diggs as well as Devontae Adams. They are my 2 highest ranked wide receivers, but I'm recording this during the day on the day you are watching this on Friday, and Devontae Adams actually got hurt. He leaves practice with an apparent leg injury. So I'm not saying that it's DEFCON 5, you need to full-on panic, do not draft Devontae Adams, but if you had your draft later tonight for some reason, I would not draft Devontae Adams at the beginning of the second round or the early first round. Because I talk about this a bunch. You don't want to chase injuries. The injuries are going to find you, and they are going to do you dirty. So I would kind of stay away from Davante Adams right now, knowing what we know, which is very little, just that he got hurt and he limped off into the training facility. So we're going to go with a running back this time. I do have Nick Chubb ranked higher than Saquon Barkley, but I do think that I've taken Nick Chubb in so many of these mock drafts that what if I'm wrong about Nick Chubb, right? What if Nick Chubb was to get hurt, knock on wood? Then all of those teams would be flaming piles of dog shit because my first or second round pick is hurt, and that would hurt all of those teams significantly. So we will go with Saquon Barkley this time. I do have Nick Chubb ranked ahead of him, but if you wanted to argue that you like Saquon better than Nick Chubb, I wouldn't say that's all that crazy. I was shocked that Saquon Barkley was able to come to an agreement so quickly after holding out. It really seemed like Saquon was going to sit there strongly, hold out, get the running backs the money, stand up for all the running backs that are being underpaid, and then like 4 days later, they have this huge Zoom meeting and everything, and he just folds for like not even $1 million more. I think it was $900,000 more. Now, I would do the same thing, right? I'd be happy to get a $900,000 fucking raise, but it did shock me a little bit. Obviously, the Giants offense is a lot better under Brian Daboll than in the past. Saquon Barkley has some solid pass catching upside. He's not going to catch as many balls as a guy like Eckler or McCaffrey or like Alvin Kamara if he was playing for the whole season a couple of years ago, but he will be able to get 50 plus targets, 60, maybe even 70 plus targets, right? In an offense that I think is going to be pretty solid. So Saquon Barkley is another guy where you draft him and you're just pretty excited about it. You don't really feel some type of gut feeling in your chest, right? Where it hurts that you drafted him. And I also don't just get aroused drafting Saquon Barkley, right? It doesn't feel like I won my league drafting Saquon Barkley, but it also doesn't feel like I made a terrible pick, but he does certainly have top 3 running back upside. After Saquon Barkley, we see A.J. Brown, followed by Derrick Henry, Davante Adams, Pat Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor, Garrett Wilson, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Josh Jacobs, as well as Amon-Ra St. Brown. The third round opens with Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Allen, Jalen Waddle away, Waddle, Mark Andrews, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Mixon. Kind of sad that none of the big 3 quarterbacks fell to me, that being Allen, Mahomes, or Hurts, but I have kind of came to a conclusion at this point in the summer that in most drafts, if you are at the end of the 3rd round, it is going to be very unlikely that one of those quarterbacks falls to you, and it is possible that in some leagues, all 3 of them go before the 2nd round even comes to a close, or the very early 3rd round by like the 303, all 3 quarterbacks are gone. So we have kind of been cucked out of drafting Mark Andrews or any of the top 3 quarterbacks. That's okay, but it does kind of hurt because I was hoping maybe somehow one of those guys would fall to us. So right now we got Saquon and Stefan Diggs, a very balanced approach to the start of the draft. Looking at the running backs, best available, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones. I like Breece Hall. I like Aaron Jones. The fact that Dalvin Cook still hasn't signed to the Jets kind of almost tells me that Dalvin Cook probably isn't going to end up as a New York Jet, if I'm being honest with you, but there is still that like 5% thought in the back of my mind that does kind of scare me away from Breece Hall. At receiver, we have Chris Olave, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley. I have Calvin Ridley ranked the highest out of all of these guys. I have been someone that has been banging the drum for Calvin Ridley all offseason. I think that Calvin Ridley is going to absolutely smash this season in Jacksonville. It's a great offense with a great quarterback. But even though there is some worry about Breece Hall, I want to get him on my team because I know for sure if Dalvin Cook does not sign, Breece Hall's ADP is going to skyrocket directly through the moon straight to fucking Jupiter, right? Breece Hall is a guy that even if he's limited for the first couple of weeks of the season, has legitimate top 5 running back upside. The guy was uber efficient last season and wasn't even given that much opportunity to start. He played great in an offense that was quarterbacked by Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, right? These garbage-ass quarterbacks, and Breece Hall was able to dominate. I think the offensive line has gotten a lot better. While it might be a little gross to start Breece Hall, for instance, week 1 up against the Buffalo Bills, I think that's either Sunday night or Monday Night Football. I think Monday Night Football. That might be a little bit of a hard ask, right? but we will know more as we get closer to the start of the football season. I think even if Dalvin Cook signs, Breece Hall will be just fine, but he probably won't be worth a third-round pick. So we're not going to go running back here, even though I do like Aaron Jones. It's just, we already have Barkley, we already have Hall. There's really no need to do that. I don't really feel the need to reach on Hawkinson, Lamar, Fields here. So we're just going to go wide receiver. You could really take any of these guys in tier 3 aside from DK Metcalf, and I wouldn't really judge you if I'm being honest with you. I have talked a bunch about Chris Olave and how I am kind of feeling like a little bit nervous when I draft him, because I think there's a chance that Michael Thomas is just healthy, gets a bunch of targets, but there's also the upside, right, of Michael Thomas just sucks ass, right? He gets hurt, fucking tying his cleats up before the game, and then Chris Olave is a certified smash with Derek Carr. I like Devontae Smith. I like T. Higgins. I don't like DK Metcalf, but I'm going to have to fold in at least one of my drafts. I do enough fantasy drafts to where I need to get Metcalf on one of my teams, because if I am wrong and maybe JSN doesn't have a large impact in year 1, maybe Metcalf just had a down year, he's going to dominate 50 Shades of Grey style over Lockett. The Seattle Seahawks offense is going to be pounding teams like Zach Charbonnet, sent that guy to the Shadow Realm last night. I don't know if you guys were watching the preseason game, but Zach Charbonnet was running motherfuckers over like he was Marshawn Lynch. We're going to talk about him hopefully later in the draft as we can select him, but this time I think we are going to go with Devontae Smith. DK Metcalf, while I do want to get him on one of these teams, right, because I think he is an incredibly talented player, I'm just worried about the situation. I would not be able to stomach drafting him over a guy like Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Chris Olave. So we're going to go with Devontae Smith here. Great upside in one of the best offenses in the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles. It says that we got a nice value on him there, but I don't think it's necessarily crazy to see him fall to the 4th round of a 10-team league, especially with how I know in a lot of these sharper leagues, running backs are falling deeper and deeper into the draft. But let's be honest with you, in some more casual leagues, the first round might have 6 running backs, right? Guys like Devontae Smith could fall. If you think that's egregious, then imagine that instead Calvin Ridley was on our team instead of Devontae Smith, and maybe that'll make you happy. If you guys have enjoyed thus far, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as hitting that like button, and let me know what you guys think about my team and the picks I've made thus far. So DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, Travis Etienne, Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, A. Ron Jones, Deebo Samuel, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins. The 5th opens with Kenneth Walker III, Tyler Lockett, Damian Pierce, Lamar Jackson, Wiki, DJ Moore, Miles Sanders, Amari Cooper, TJ Hawkinson, and Deontay Johnson. It feels like the computers, it feels like the consensus ADP is starting to move on up on DeAndre Hopkins. I have been someone that has been riding the DeAndre Hopkins bandwagon ever since he signed with the Tennessee Titans, or was traded to the Tennessee Titans. I don't remember how it went down. I think he got cut and then he signed with them, but I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyways, he's on the fucking Tennessee Titans, and I think that this is a great spot for him. I really do think that Tannehill is a better quarterback than people give him credit for. I think he has a lot of touchdown upside. This guy was incredible in Arizona last year when he was healthy. I don't think he's really lost that pizzazz. Obviously, he's getting older, so there are some worries. I get why some people might be nervous. I'm just not quite as scared. So Alexander Mattison has been a guy that I have been smash drafting in the 5th round. But if you watch the preseason game last night, Chandler was looking really, really good, and it does kind of scare me. Now, I'm not saying that preseason action is like real action, because obviously it's not like Ty Chandler was going up against the top-tier Seattle Seahawks defense, but they did seem to rely on him a decent amount, dumping the ball off to him a ton. So I think Alexander Mattison will lose some work to him, but at the end of the day, I still think Alexander Mattison isn't a bad pick in the 5th round. It's just something that's in the back of my mind when I talk about Mattison. It's not like I really think he's going to have like the workhorse role. Like, he might split a little bit more, which might knock him down some people's rankings. I still think he's fair coming off the board as the RB20, but for some people, maybe that's a deal breaker. No deal, like fucking that guy with a bald head. You know who I'm talking about, but I can't remember his name. The guy that hosts Deal of No Deal. I can't remember his name, though. I do apologize, because that joke would have hit a little bit harder if that was the case. So Madison's still interesting to me, though. We do have back-to-back picks, Jordan 96, 97. At this point, I love Darren Waller. Kittle is banged up, absent from practice on Thursday with an abductor strain. I am not a doctor. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins. That doesn't sound great, though. But again, not a doctor. He should be fine, based on what I've read. I didn't like Kittle that much anyways. I definitely prefer Waller to him. I think one of these picks will end up being a quarterback. I take Justin Fields so often in these drafts, but it's just because he goes later than Lamar, typically by a round or two. He goes much later than those upper echelon quarterbacks like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, as well as Patrick Mahomes. And Justin Fields has that insane rushing repertoire in his arsenal, where he could run for 1,000+ rushing yards. He could get 10+ rushing touchdowns. And even if he doesn't increase as a passer from what he did last season, he still ends up being a smash pick in fantasy because he has that top 3 fantasy upside. Now, obviously, there's a risk inherently when drafting these guys. I talk about this a bunch, that run the ball. They could get hurt a lot easier because they are putting themselves into a much more dangerous situation. They are running at these defenders that want to hit them fucking Ray Lewis hit stick from Madden 2004, right? Or 2003, whenever that stuff came out. I was like 3 years old, but I was playing it. So I like Justin Fields, but there is definitely that injury risk. We're going to go with either running back or receiver here. I feel pretty confident with the New York tag team, the duo of Barkley and Breece Hall. So I think we're going to go receiver at this spot. Best receivers available: Godwin, Judy, London, McLaurin, Watson, Ayuk. Now I have Watson ranked the highest. I have Godwin actually ranked the lowest. But that doesn't mean that I hate Chris Godwin or Mike Evans. I think that both of those guys are interesting. I understand that when you see the depth chart come out and it says Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask are going to be the starting quarterbacks of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously a bit of shivers might be sent down your spine. But I do think that Chris Godwin could be in a situation, he's coming off, the 2021 end of season ACL MCL tear. He was decent in 2022. He was 18th at wide receiver. He should be able to bounce back. He might be a guy that I have to move up my rankings. Obviously, it's going to feel gross because Baker's on the team or Kyle Trask, and I do definitely like the other guys that are going behind him better, but I do, as always, like to say that it is important to differentiate your teams. I'm someone that's been smash drafting Watson, Judy, or McLaurin in this spot, so I want to get a little bit different. I want to take more of that risk. As I talk about a bunch in these videos, as you get later in the draft, you take the condom off. You start to take much bigger risks. Early on, you want to keep it as safe as possible. You don't want to swing and miss on your 3rd round pick, right? I know Breece Hall's a little bit risky, but you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to be swinging for the fucking fences and miss. Take these guys with bigger risks. But as you get deeper and deeper into the draft, the more risky I want to be. I think Godwin is a huge risk, but I think it could pay off tenfold if he gets force-fed the rock. It says that that's a steal at pick 50. I'm going to be honest with you, I think that's a pretty fair value at pick 50. I'm shocked to say, or to read, that he goes normally at pick 38. That's definitely a little too high for Chris Godwin, if I'm being honest with you. We are back up on the board here. I think we're going to end up folding and going for Justin Fields. Again, the upside is just so incredible with Fields. Again, I do love to draft a quarterback with that elite upside in these 10-team leagues because it really does feel like such a large advantage having that elite quarterback, right? There's going to be teams that have Dak or Deshaun Watson. Like, I love Deshaun Watson. I like Dak. But there's a chance Watson just is never the same. He's never that great. There's a chance that Dak just throws a million fucking interceptions again, right? And then me with Justin Fields, I'm sitting like the king of the castle. Very nice. So I like Justin Fields there at that spot. After him, we see Justin Herbert, the pervert, Jerry Jeudy, Terry McLaurin, Drizzy Drake London, Mike Williams, Hollywood Brown, Christian Watson, Rashad White, Dallas Goedert. The 7th opens with Joe Shiesty. I like Joe Burrow in the 7th round, but that injury, again, when you draft, you don't want to be chasing these injuries. I talked about this in a video the other day. Zach Taylor gives a quote that's like, we're weeks away from him coming back, and that's what I said weeks ago, basically, to kind of paraphrase. So what he's doing is pulling a fucking Neo from the Matrix. He's dodging the question. He's not answering the question fully. Now, I get it. A lot of these coaches, they like the Bill Belichick way, the Belichick move of you answer the question, but you don't really answer the question, right? How healthy is this guy? You basically just don't say anything. You just answer the question without answering it. That's what Zach Taylor was doing. After Joe Shiesty, we see George Kittle. Darren Waller sadly goes in the 7th. Would have loved to get him at the 7-10. Then we see Alvin Kamara, kind of interesting in the 7th round. Obviously has that 3-game suspension. I've been staying away from him, but again, not a guy that I want to full-on fade. Like, I'm probably going to end up, I play in a lot of leagues, so I'm probably going to end up drafting him at least one. Again, if you play in just one league, a lot of these guys that I say to avoid, just don't draft them, right? Like Metcalf, Debo. I was in one league, I'm not fucking drafting them. But since I play in more than 5 leagues, I'm willing to take them. And then I do obviously a lot of those best ball drafts. So in those, you almost, if you do a lot of them, you just have to take guys you don't like, because you don't want to just have 0% of some guy that ends up as like a top 5 receiver or running back. Then you end up looking like an asshole at the end of the year. So after Kamara, Dalvin Cook, J.K. Dobbins, his contract seeming like it's moving positively from what I've read. Like maybe they give him a contract, so that would be good for Dobbins, but still a guy I'm kind of nervous about, right? This is an offense that's going to be throwing the ball a little bit more in Baltimore under Monken. A little scary for me. Cam Akers, Mike Evans, and Javonte Williams. So we're back up on the board here. At this point, Pitts would be, if I'm taking a tight end, I'm taking Pitts, and if I don't take Pitts, I would assume he'd come off the board by the time we get to like the 9th round, and then I just would wait at tight end if I'm being honest. Even though I did just sing the praises of taking that early tight end, sometimes the draft just doesn't fall that way. So we're going to go receiver here. Best available are Ayuk, Kirk, Pittman, Jahan Dotson. I have Kirk ranked lower than Pittman, but I think we're going to go Kirk here. I have kind of not even spoken negatively about Christian Kirk. I just don't like him as much as some people do. But I think wide receiver 30 value for him is fair. He is a pretty solid player in an amazing offense that I want to target. I want pieces of this Jaguars offense. I just think his volume isn't going to be there as much with Calvin Ridley there, but that doesn't discount the amount of spike games he could have, again, in one of the better offenses in the NFL with Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to take Christian Kirk there. I think that is a very exciting pick in the 7th round. And then we're back up on the clock here. Connor, Madison, Swift, Montgomery, all still available. Even with the worries about Breece Hall, I think with how this league is set up with 2 wide receiver spots and 2 flexes, and with the kind of uncertainty, the risk with Godwin and Kirk, I'd rather just take another shot in a receiver to cycle in here. Obviously, Smith and Diggs are basically locks in my lineup every single week. Godwin and Kirk definitely aren't. So we're going to go with another receiver here. Jordan Addison made a toe tap catch look like fucking Michael Jackson, doing that thing where he like, you know what I'm talking about? Where he stands there and he fucking like goes forward. You know, that type of thing. He did that on the sideline. They didn't count it as a catch. I love Jordan Addison. That was definitely 100% a catch. This guy's going to be a baller in one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the NFL, but I can't galaxy brain myself into taking him over Michael Pittman Jr. I know people don't like Michael Pittman Jr., but this is a guy that is going to see an ass load of volume. He is going to get so much volume game in and game out. He is going to be one of the most highest targeted wide receivers in the National Football League. I don't know about Anthony Richardson as a passer. I know a lot of people are kind of sus on that, but at the end of the day, the volume is going to be there as long as he's more accurate than fucking Matt Ryan and Sam Ellinger. Michael Pittman's in for a pretty solid season. After Pittman, we see Alexander Mattison, Brandon Ayuk, James Conner, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Kadarius Toney, Zay Flowers, DeAndre Swift, Deshaun Watson, Jahan Dotson, Antonio Gibson, Brandon Cooks, George Pickens, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, 49ers defense, and Treylon Burke. So the question here is, do we want running back or do we want wide receiver? Pitts is still available, but I'm going to be honest with you, I think that's basically impossible to happen in the 9th round, so we're not going to take him because that is just so unrealistic. People say, oh, Pittman in the 8th, Kirk in the 7th, that's a little unrealistic. I think that's far more realistic than Pitts falling this far. But then again, there are going to be leagues where you play in a league, these people play in other leagues, right? Maybe a lot of them drafted Pitts. Pitts has basically fucking spanked him in the ass for multiple years in a row. People are nervous. I get it. I'm not as nervous, though. I have been avoiding Pitts like the fucking bubonic plague the last couple of years, but I'm now on him this year when he comes at the heavily discounted price, right? In the past, you had to draft him at very solid price, but this year is like a fucking fire sale from Call of Duty Zombies. You're getting him at a big discount. So for me, we're going to go with another receiver here because, again, our flex spots at receiver are a little bit risky. Gabe Davis, Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Elijah Moore. I've talked about this a bunch. I am comfortable taking 2 players early on that are on the same team that might be in my lineup weekly, like Diggs and Davis. I was all over Davis last year, and that one hurt. That one hurt really fucking bad, like a fucking right hook from Javier. What's his name? It's not Javier Baez. Fuck. That's a different baseball player. The guy that fucking punched Tim Anderson in the face. I'm sorry that I forgot what his name was. That was hilarious. I don't remember his name. I remember the meme, though, of him squared up with Jake Paul. Might have been a better fight than Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul. But, yeah, I don't really want anything to do with Gabe Davis, if I'm being honest with you. He seems like a guy that, I get it, you're in the 9th round, you don't need consistency, right? You're not staring down the barrel at looking for the most consistent guy, but I just don't know how I'm going to galaxy brain myself into ever starting him. Like, over Pittman, Kirk, and Godwin. Like, there's a scenario where the Denver Broncos bounce back heavily. Courtland Sutton drops some weight, I read. He looks better. They lose Tim Patrick to that sad injury 2 years in a row. That fucking sucks. Maybe Sutton's a guy that becomes more reliable. Maybe Elijah Moore. I'm all over this Browns offense. Maybe Elijah Moore smashes. Maybe Michael Thomas comes from the fucking grave, Undertaker style, and is great. I'm going to take Michael Thomas here. I get it might be a wasted pick. It might be. But he might also be like a top 10 receiver for multiple weeks of the season. I probably wouldn't start him week 1, but if he's healthy for just half the season, you could get 6, 7, 8 weeks of a guy that's like a top 18 receiver in the 9th round, which is basically fucking impossible to do. So, again, there's definitely risk with it. I do feel a little bit risky with Godwin, Kirk, and Pittman, but again, he's my wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not like he's a guy that week 1, early on in the season, I'm going to have to rely on. And if he gets hurt, or if the slant man isn't able to return to his former glory, you can just cut him. Now, I have Montgomery ranked the highest out of this group, but I would be shocked in a real draft if Montgomery fell this far, so we're not going to take him just for the sake of realism. We are going to go with Brian Robinson. Now, I haven't taken Brian Robinson much over guys like Khalil Herbert because I think that I like Antonio Gibson more. But I will be honest with you, we know the amount of volume Brian Robinson will get. He did get hot towards the end of last season. I hate how they don't have the stats from last year, but he was looking pretty good towards the end of last season. Obviously, he started the season off deep into the season because the fucker got shot. He got shot, so he was dealing with that. Obviously, that's going to impact him. And now he's coming into the season healthy, so assuming he doesn't get fucking shot again, Brian Robinson is in for a very solid season. Again, he doesn't have a lot of pass catching upside, so that sucks in a PPR league. But in a pinch, if you need to start him, I think the Commanders' offense can be a little bit better under Bieniemy. Like, again, I'm not starting him probably even over Breece Hall or obviously not over Barkley week 1, but the matchup against Arizona is a little mouthwatering. That's a pretty solid matchup for Brian Robinson. Obviously, if this was a real draft, I would just take David Montgomery because in a real draft, I don't feel bad about drafting someone at a huge discount, but I don't think it would have been very realistic. After Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, A.J. Dillon, Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, Rashad with 2 A's, Penny, Odell Beckham Jr., Elijah Moore, Devin 2 Chains, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Khalil Herbert. The 11th opens with Jeff Wilson, Courtland Sutton, Kyle Pitts, Rashad Master, Bateman, Gabe Davis, Zach Charbonnet, who I wanted to take because he looked real good in that preseason game. Again, don't overreact to preseason. Don't blow your load on preseason, but it kind of confirms my prior thoughts that I like Charbonnet. Bills defense, Samaje Perine, and Nico Collins. Report just came in. I checked my phone. Head coach Josh McDaniels doesn't think Devontae Adams suffered anything serious. Now, a lot of the times that's just kind of coach speak, but at least somewhat more promising. I'm still a little nervous, though, to draft him. Like, normally I double tap Diggs and fucking Adams and take it straight to the bank, but right now, not knowing 100% without the full confirmation that he's going to be fully healthy, I am still a little nervous. I just have to be. So looking at the board here, we still don't have a tight end, but we're probably just going to draft another running back here and then maybe tight end. Harris, McKinnon, Mitchell, Singletary, Algier, Warren, Mostert, all available on the board here. I think we're just going to go with Damian Harris. Pretty safe pick. I think James Cook is going to be getting all the pass catching volume, all of that, but I still think there's a chance that Damian Harris just is a better running back than James Cook, despite the fact that I like James Cook so much. I wasn't really sold on the tape last season. It just kind of feels like a situation where he could see a lot of pass catching opportunities in a great offense. So we're going to go tight end here. We do have Kirk in our lineup, so we're going to have 2 Jacksonville guys, but at some point, they fall too far. Evan Ingram, to me, has really good upside. I do worry about the fact that with Ridley there, they have Zay Jones, they have, obviously, Christian Kirk, they have Etienne, they have Tank Bigsby. There's a lot of options to throw the ball to, but Ingram looked really good last season. The best season of his career outside of his rookie year in terms of fantasy finish at PPR. He kind of stopped dropping the ball so much. The touchdowns weren't there. Maybe the touchdowns increased this year. They're going to say that was a steal, but I would have been fine with really any tight end if I'm being honest with you. Once you get past the Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle, Hawkinson, those main guys, Pitts, Goddard, like after you get past, so Waller, Kittle, Goddard, Pitts, Hawkinson, Andrews, Kelsey, they all start to feel the same, right? Ingram, Njoku, like Freiermuth, Schultz, Dulcich, Higbee, like any of these guys could finish as like a top 8 tight end and it wouldn't shock me, right? So I wasn't really fiending to draft Ingram there. He was just there, so I took him. After, we went with Evan Ingram, Easy E. We see Romeo Doubs, Jacoby Myers, Jerick McKinnon, Jameson Williams, Tyler, yeah, Boyd, Sky with 2 Ys more, Philadelphia Eagles defense, David Njoku, Pat Freiermuth, Kendre Miller, Trevor Lawrence, Adam Thielen, I don't know why I fucking stuttered on his name, Dalton Schultz, Juwan Johnson, Dallas Cowboys, Alan Lazard, Raheem Mostert, and Greg Dulcich. So we're back up on the clock here. I'm not taking a second quarterback because we have Fields. If you want to take another tight end, you want another option weekly, you can just kind of stream tight ends, or not stream tight ends, but cycle them in and out, up and down. Then you can go with like a Higbee or something. I'm not going to do that, but I do get the thought process behind that. Probably going to go another running back and receiver here. I have so many Jacksonville players, so I don't know if it's necessarily advisable to go with Tank here, but I am all over Tank Bigsby. I think Roshan Johnson, Donta Foreman, this whole Chicago backfield's pretty interesting. Pretty interested in Zeke as well, depending on where he falls. Leonard Fournette as well. I think Algier's going to see more volume than people think. I still think Bijan's like a smash pick, but if something happened to Bijan, Algier literally would be like a league winner in the 13th round, so I'd rather take that shot deep in the draft, and then we're going to go wide receiver again. If you want to go Higbee here instead, go right ahead. We're going to shoot for more upside. We are going to go with... Did you see that route Hunter Renfrow ran? Sheesh. I mean, if Devontae Adams isn't there, maybe Jacoby Myers moves up the board. I think we're just going to go with, again, with the last pick, you can take literally anyone. Like, don't take someone, this is what a lot of people do with their last pick. They're like, haha, let me pick fucking Tim Tebow. That'll be funny. Let me take, I don't know, Peyton Manning, right? Because, like, for some reason, Peyton Manning is still in the system or something like that. Like, take fucking Tony Romo or something. Take an actual player, but look, if you don't have to take, like, the highest ranked player in ADP. Like, you can scroll all the way down. Like, we just saw Tank Dell look like fucking, I don't even know. The guy was running like Tyreek Hill out there. Maybe Tank Dell skyrockets up the draft board. So you know what? Just to talk about Tank Dell, are we even going to be able to find him in here? There he is. Wide receiver 108. People are going to talk themselves into him after one preseason game. I think he could end up as the wide receiver 2 on this team. And maybe the Texans are able to outdo expectations. We're just going to take him because we wanted to talk about him. It's going to bury our draft grade because we took Tank Dell, but I don't really care. The speed is there. He's a high upside guy. I think on a week in, week out standpoint, he's probably going to be very boomer bust. But when you got a guy with that amount of speed, all it takes, CJ Stroud looked bad, let's be honest, but it's just one preseason game. I'm not fucking claiming he's a bust. After Tank Dell, we see Tank Bigsby, Devin Singletary, Dickie Dak Prescott, Elijah Mitchell, Donta Foreman, Jalen Warren, Tua Tagovailoa, Chuba Hubbard, Russell Wilson, Justin Tucker the fucker, Daniel Carlson, Roshan Johnson, Tyler Bass, New York Jets, New York, Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Rodgers, Cole Kmet, Patriots defense. Want to go kicker first, and then defense. Want to go with Evan McPherson, Money Mac, and then we're going to go with the defense again to draft your defense. You want to draft a defense playing a not so hot opponent in week 1, and then after that you can just stream week in and week out. The Ravens get the Texans. Sounds like a good deal to me. First game of CJ Stroud. He's going to be nervous. He's going to be shitting bricks. He didn't look great in that preseason game. I don't think he's going to look amazing week 1, but I do still think the Texans players have upside because he'll get better as the season goes on. We got a B-, but there's an A+ in my opinion. If we drafted like some other receiver instead of Tank Dell, it probably would have given us like a fucking B+ or an A. So we got Justin Fields. Our running backs are Saquon and Breece Hall. Our receivers are Diggs and Smith. Our tight end is Evan Ingram. Our flexes are Chris Godwin and Christian Kirk. Our defense is the Ravens. Our kicker is Money McPherson. Our bench is Michael Pittman Jr., Michael Thomas, back-to-back Michaels, Brian Robinson Jr., Damian Harris, Tyler Algier, and Tank Dell. So let me know what you guys thought about today's team. Let me know if you guys have any suggestions for mock drafts you want to see in the future. Definitely going to be doing some Superflex stuff. Maybe an 8-team draft. We're going to be doing that draft-a-thon, like I said, next Sunday, so make sure you're there. Be there or be square. It's going to be fun. We're going to rip off 12 drafts. 10 drafts, something like that. I don't know how I'm going to be feeling come the end of the night. Maybe we'll even keep going even longer, you know? Fuck it. Do like 13 drafts. Who knows? I doubt it because I'll probably look like a fucking zombie after streaming for that long. But I do love you guys. I appreciate you guys from deep down in the bottom of my heart. I love you guys all so much. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you have a good one. And as always, good boy!